In this video, I'm going to show you guys all about the Pro BlueGhozt Controller by Next Level Neo. A custom set of headlights is a game changer, but without the right controller, your lights just don't shine as well as they could. The guys at BlueGhozt created arguably the best addressable controller on the market, but unfortunately, they only sell it in a bare PCB form. What does that mean? It means it's not waterproof, and there is some assembly required. That's not ideal for everybody, and we totally understand that. And that's why we have the Pro Controller. The Pro Controller takes the benefits that the BlueGhozt offers, which we cover in a lot of videos on this channel. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about why the BlueGhozt stands out, definitely check those videos out. But it takes that controller and it adds some things that we have learned over the years greatly help to extend the life of your lights. First and foremost is the Power Saver. So the Power Saver was created to deal with a common problem that we were seeing on 5-volt addressable LEDs. Addressable LEDs draw power at all times. That means if your headlights are off, it is drawing power from your battery. These LEDs are sensitive to voltage shocks and low voltage situations, meaning that when your battery is dying, it can actually make your LEDs burn out, which will create that flicker that you sometimes will see on a set of lights. Generally, this is the case when an LED goes out and all the LEDs after that LED lose their data signal from the controller and are unable to attain the color that you set on the app. From what we've seen, this is because of a low voltage situation, possibly voltage fluctuations on the vehicle itself. And this really helps to protect from a lot of that, being that it does disconnect your lights from the battery when not in use. So not only are you less likely to have dead batteries, but you're also less likely to have LEDs burn out as a result of shocks and low voltage situations. So with our controller, we have the BlueGhozt Lite, we have our custom molded extensions, and inside of that is our Power Saver relay. Now, this relay automatically turns on and off with the car. So signals from your DRLs and your turn signals will activate the relay to give power to the controller and the LEDs so that they can function like normal. But when you park the car, your lights turn off. It will also disconnect power to the LEDs to make sure they don't drain the battery. In addition to that, it includes a remote. Now, the remote has two functions. First, this is a permanent latch to the relay inside of our Power Saver, meaning if you push the B button, it will activate the LEDs, and that way when you're showing off the car, if you're at a car show, a meet, you just want to show it off to some friends, but you don't want to turn the car on, you could use this to force the relay to connect and give you power to the LEDs. You do need to keep in mind that if you use this to activate it, it will not turn off automatically. You will have to push the B button again to deactivate the relay to make sure that your battery does not die. Next, we have the A button. Now the A button is connected to a trigger on the BlueGhozt controller itself, and that trigger can have up to 8 show modes pinned to the trigger. And once again, we do have videos that go into more detail on the process of doing that. But basically what that does is it allows you to activate up to 8 pre-programmed show modes using this remote and not having to open up your phone. That makes it a lot easier to show off your lights without having to fiddle with your phone. Moving on to the controller, you'll see the controller is encased in epoxy inside. While we try to keep them as clean as possible, you may potentially see some epoxy escape out some of the holes on the controller. This is normal and will not affect the function of the controller at all. Coming out of the controller are 3 wires. Our first wire is our power and ground. Red is power, black is ground, and we have a fuse holder in between to help protect the controller in the event that you have a short or some other issue. Currently, it is a 15 amp fuse that we install. It can be upgraded if needed, but generally 15 amps is more than enough for most applications. For the power and ground, we recommend going directly to the battery, as that is your best power and ground on the vehicle. But if you have a car where the battery is in the trunk or in another location, you can go to the fuse box or another suitable power and ground location. But please ensure it is a solid ground and a solid power connection to minimize any issues you may have with the controller and the lights. The next connection we have is our first connection to the lights themselves. That waterproof connection is an 8-pin connector, and you do need to keep in mind that there is an 8-pin on one side and a 6-pin on the other side of the harness. So these are specific to each other. So the 8-pin must plug into the 8-pin, and it will plug in very easily, and the 6-pin must plug into the 6-pin, and once again, it will plug in very easily. just screw the rings together, and that will lock it in place and keep any water out of the plug. On that connector, we have a cable gland, which can have the nut removed. A hole can be drilled in the back of the lights, the nut secured back in place with the light in between, and that will allow you to run your connections inside of the lights. Inside we have a single JST. This is the standard connection that most addressable LEDs come with, including most of the ones that Next Level Neo sells. Inside of a lights, the JST is a great connector and it works perfectly fine. But we find that externally, these are prone to getting corrosion and other issues from water, which are not ideal for an electrical connection. So we use the waterproof connection on the outside, and the JSTs are perfectly fine inside. You will also find 2 wires, one for your DRL, which is the white wire, and one for the turn signal, which is your yellow wire. These wires ideally can be ran inside of the light if your light has those connections inside, or it can be passed back through your cable gland to the outside of the lights for an external connection. The third connection outside of the light is a long version to go to the far side of the car. We generally recommend that this is installed in front of the radiator behind the grille. It's very important that this is not installed near any hot or moving parts on the car itself. So once again, ideally, I would put this behind the grille in front of the radiator support, and generally it can be zip tied in location very easily. We have another waterproof plug. Once again, this is a 6-pin, not the 8-pin, so you do have to make sure you connect the right side to the right side of the harness. Just keep that in mind when you are building the lights. Where is your battery location or your power and ground connection on the car? And make sure that you use the appropriate plug on the light that corresponds to that location. We have another cable gland in between, another JST, and on this side, one single turn signal wire. So that wire can be tapped in just the same for the turn. You only need one DRL connection, but it does need to differentiate between the turn signals on the left and right side of the car. So you do have 2 turn signal connections to make. Once again, a JST on this end. This is a 12-volt controller, meaning that it will send 12 volts to this cable. Now, we understand that many applications you will be using 5-volt LEDs. The way that we go about this, we use an inverter inside of the lights that will convert the 12-volt to 5-volt. If you have followed a lot of our other videos, you'll understand that we use a lot of 12-volt and 5-volt in our builds, and adding an inverter to this box just adds a little bit more bulk, whereas it can be easily hidden inside of the lights and actually create less chance for issues having it inside the light versus running 5-volt the full length of our extensions. 12-volt just runs better with less heat and less possibility for issues. So we find that this is the best way to run the power to the LEDs. And we do have more videos on our YouTube channel that explain better the separation of 5-volt and 12-volt inside of a light. So this controller is ideal for someone that is building their own lights. Maybe you're starting from scratch and you're building a full custom set, or you bought a drop-in kit like our K5 or our Charger series boards, and you need something to be able to install everything inside the light. This should work, and if you need anything like splitters, we also have those on the website as well. Keeping in mind that the BlueGhozt itself does best when LEDs are wired in series, and we have videos on the channel that explain this in much more detail. Be sure to check them out if you're curious the difference between running in series and running in parallel. In addition to the people that are looking to build their own lights, we also wanted to offer an option for people that bought pre-built lights with something like an SP105E on the Magic LED app, or possibly just a bare BlueGhozt controller, but they want to have a little bit more of a waterproof connection to those lights. That is where this controller comes in. Just like our other controller, this one has a BlueGhozt Lite with our extension on the back and a power saver inside with the remote. It also has the same power and ground output with our fuse holder built in, and it has 2 outputs. The difference of this one is that we have included 5-volt inverters on the wiring themselves and created 3 JST connections. We find that most pre-built lights from other manufacturers will use the JST connections externally, and that will make these a plug-and-play option. We do recommend that you add some dielectric grease to help keep the moisture out and stop corrosion of the connections, but this should be a plug-and-play option for most lights, assuming they are 5-volt connections on the LEDs and that they are using JST connections to those LEDs. So once again, you may need to reach out to your light builder to verify that this will work with the lights, or you can reach out to us and we can try to help you find out if it will fit your application. This does as well have the same DRL and turn signal connections, and you will have to verify which connections those are on the car and connect these up. Once again, that is white for your DRL and yellow for your turn signal. On the far side, we have the same connections, 3 JSTs, our 5-volt inverter, and 1 turn signal, just like the other set of lights, but it's all external and we do not have the waterproof barrel connectors. Once again, reason being, these are more intended for built lights. If you get something from Lighting Trends or somebody like that with the addressable, they have the JSTs external. You want to upgrade to the BlueGhozt, but you want to get a waterproof one, and you also want to have your LEDs disconnect from the battery when not in use. That is what this controller is for. Hopefully this video explains a little better about the Pro controller, the pros and cons as to why you might want it, as well as the features that are packed within. We do have other videos going into more detail on programming the Ghost controller, as well as building headlights, assembling, opening, adding breather patches to prevent condensation, and a ton of other videos on our YouTube channel. If you're looking at building your own set of lights, or you're just curious about the process, make sure to check out our channel, check out the tutorials playlist, and you can see all of those videos and more. For all of your LED lighting needs, make sure to check out nextlevelneo.com, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.